Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Wolfpack Podcasts. My guest today is Gaynor Birtles. Gaynor, part of the England team, been a Wolfpack member for coming up to 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years next month, yeah.
Just going to start off for everybody who doesn't know you. Just go through kind of how you started coming here and what got you here before you got into kettlebells as a sport.
Okay, so I've always had problems with my weight, up and down. I'll be really good for 12 months, lose a load of weight, and then I'll stop and put it all back on again. And I've been in that cycle for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
So COVID hit, and it shocked me that I was in the high risk bracket because of my weight. I'd lost my dad to a heart attack, and kind of reality hit. Hang on, that could happen to me too. So I did pee with Joe every morning religiously, but didn't change any of my eating habits. And surprise, didn't lose anything, stayed the same. And then just randomly one day I was talking to Gabs on the park, and we were discussing you and PTing, and I said, I think I should do that with him. She obviously passed the number on to you. And you messaged me and I panicked. I thought, no, I don't want to do that.
It's weird because you're one of the only people who have got onto the kettlebell team who I actually knew before getting you here.
Yeah.
Most people who I know will come and use the gym, like people from my basketball team come and use the gym, but they come in and they do just the machines, or they come have a program from me, or I might PT them like sporadically. But you're the first person that I knew that got in to the beginners class, went from the beginners class into the normal class, integrated really well. We'll talk about your running in a little bit, but what was the thing that, like you said, like you tried different things have stuck and things that haven't stuck. What's been it about the sport that's kept you in it?
It's the first thing that I've actually enjoyed doing.
Not pee with whips.
No, I hate that. Any other form of exercise through school, anything, I just didn't enjoy anything at all. And I don't know what it is, and sometimes I will be in class and I'll be swinging the bell and I have this moment of like, who am I? What am I doing? And it's like really bizarre to look around and see everybody and actually enjoying it. It's weird.
I think it's fair to say in the past sort of 6 months, you since the build up to going to Poland for WKSF, you're lifting as your coach and as seeing how you are in the team, because the team really is, like, being pretty brutally honest, that the team here really is a standard to measure yourself by, because you've got a room full of world champions. Your lifting in the past sort of 6 months has just gone like up another level with your strength. What are you looking forward to going into next year? Because you've achieved quite a lot, and a few people are talking about they're at our age. I always talk about it and you always laugh at me, but we're talking about kind of getting towards the end of what we've wanted to do, and talking about winding competing side down, whereas you seem to be taking on like more challenges. So compared to what you've done, what do you want to achieve in the next kind of lifting season next year?
So recently I've been trying to lift the heavier bells, which I never thought I'd be able to do. I always thought I'd stick with the lighter bells for longer duration. So possibly, injury permitting, I would like to have a go with the 28 World Games.
Where's going? I'm not going to say reps and sets and things just yet, but you've got a program on it.
Yes.
You're doing pretty well. We're pretty happy with how it's gone for it. What's the difference in appeal? And this is something that, like, people listening to this who know the sport will get more than other people will, because it's since Sarah Jarvis and since Casey, it's had a big explosion of girls trying to lift that heavier belt. Whereas really, like, there's been me, Lukey, Johnny, the Spanish guy, have always traditionally been on that 40 kilogram. What is it about lifting the 28 that appeals to you? Because it is heavy. It's not like that weight isn't a fun weight to lift necessarily.
No.
So what is it about the event that appeals?
I don't know. I build these things up in my head that people are thinking, well, you wouldn't be able to do that. So then I get competitive, as you know. So I think it's more that side of things. Well, if you don't think I can, I'm going to have a go anyway and see. I've never really thought about it, and it was only when Susie had given me the breakdown of what reps I'd need to qualify, and I'm like, actually, I'm going to have a go. That might be achievable.
So and that's one thing about our sport. This is the thing about the reps. The reps become a target, and then the achievements you get of hitting certain reps becomes the target more than winning first, second, or third.
Yeah.
So it becomes a thing of like, I could qualify for that.
Yeah.
I could get CMS for it. What other kind of like things? So outside of kettlebell sports, you say that you've never found anything that you like, yet quite famously, or you're quite well known in the gym for how much you run.
Yeah.
And the level that you run. You ran your marathon in Manchester back in when?
April.
In April,
yeah.
okay. So what is it about running that you like or don't like? And if you don't like it, what keeps you going with it?
I don't like it. I say I don't like it. Every morning when I get up and my alarm goes off, I hate it. When I'm actually out doing it, I don't mind it. Yeah. And I try and change it. I try and change the route to do, try and go quicker or just have slow, just so it's not the same every day. But I would say I don't enjoy it really.
No.
I do it because it's the only thing that seems to work for weight loss for me.
Yeah.
Or I've built that up in my head that it's the only thing that works. When I've lost weight previously, I did a lot of running and then I stopped and gained all my weight again.
What made you stop the last time?
Last time was because of Arch and playing with my son.
Okay, yeah.
So I carried on going to the gym and running up until I was probably 6-7 months pregnant. But then I kept my gym membership after I had him, but then just didn't do anything.
Didn't use it, yeah.
And just slipped back into the...
So we got someone here who's got 6 weeks left till they're due for their due date, and they're expecting that they're going to have this baby and go pretty much straight back onto a platform and you know, hop on a plane and go compete. How did you handle kind of having expectations of how much work you put into getting yourself in your best shape, and then you go and have a kid, and then the freight train of life just kind of hits you?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. Obviously depends on the baby as well.
Yeah.
For the first 10 weeks of Archie's life, he cried every day and I cried every day. So the thought of going out and doing anything else was just...
Yeah, it's crazy because for the first 6 months of Poppy's life, I was on the other side of the world. I was like literally the other side of the world. And then like since then, we've almost been inseparable. But then having like Luna here, like for every day of it, the reality of like 2 a.m. feeds, and then like not only do you want to train, but for me it was, well, you have to go to work, you have to then come back from work, then you have stuff to do, then you've got family, and then you want to train. I had, when my kids were young, I had a double garage because we were renting a big house, and I had a double garage that was turned into my gym. So I had that thing of like, if they're down for the night, it was the inconvenience of 40 minutes to an hour leaving your door, going into the garage, getting a workout.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do with that space of time, if you don't have your gym or your kettlebell here in your house, is go for a run. And that's why it's kind of one of the first things that parents get back into, because 20 minutes, I've got a 20-minute route, I can go for a 20-minute route. And it's 20 minutes of you not being in the house it's 20 minutes of like, oh, I actually get out, which for some people as a parent, particularly as a mama, that's a really hard thing to get.
I think it's easy to make excuses that you haven't got time, which is what I did for several years after I had Arch. In reality, you just get up an hour earlier, and that's what I do. I get it done first thing in the morning before my day starts, and then I'm not thinking about it. If I left it, I would be sat there, oh, do I need to go for a run? Oh, you should go for a run. And I'd be debating with myself all day whether I should go for a run or not.
Yeah, and then also you kind of you then beat up but you haven't done it.
Yes.
And then you go, oh, you haven't done it, and then you start beating
I
yourself up.
did that
over
on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So Al, who comes to the gym, we were competing against each other. He'd been out and done a 2-hour run. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to... And then I'd beat him by doing 2.5 hours or something ridiculous. And then on Christmas Eve, I got up and I thought, I'm not going to go for a run. And I'd been debating all day, should I go out or not?
And you saw him run past.
And then, he messaged me and he'd done 3 hours, and then I was fuming. And I had to go out and just do 20 minutes to make myself feel better.
My thing that I like getting my first workout done early. So typically I like to get my bell set done. Like if I can fit it in with gaps of shifts and things like that, if I can fit it around life balance, to get here before the school run, get up when no one else is out.
Yeah.
You feel amazing getting out and doing your first workout there. And then if the whole day, like if whatever happens, you've got to go sort out family stuff, there's a problem at school, etc., from at work, and you don't get the chance to go and get that second or third workout in you, at least you've got your first one done. Yeah. And particularly where the classes work out as well, like for you guys, you can get your bells set done at the class. So if you get your run done, that's your cardio, and in the evening, that's your bells. So it's a good format. I've always been one of those people that says, like, get up and get it done early. And what you want about, you get up an hour earlier. A lot of people have that in their head as a huge mental block. But when it starts becoming your habit, it's not actually that hard to do. It's the same habit of changing what you eat. Once it's ingrained after a few weeks, it's just something that people get up and do. But about the marathon training and about running, do you find any similarities between long distance running and what I call like long kettlebell sets, like marathon kettlebells?
Not really, I don't think. I think with my running, because I'm just going out and doing it myself, I haven't got to do a set time or a set distance, and I can stop and walk if I want to. Whereas when you're doing a marathon for kettlebells, you've just got to keep going. You can't put the bell down. So I think it's harder in a way.
Kettlebells?
Yeah, because you haven't got that freedom. I
based almost all my programming done early, and this is because when I know there's some qualifications now you can do with certain lifters where they talk to you about programming and the qualifications, and I've done that. But a lot of coaches will keep their programming really guarded, and you kind of have to be their client for them to share them with you. And even I've had some coaches that want me to sign stuff that I won't talk about programs and things. So I had to do a lot of work it out myself for getting for programs for particularly marathon and pentathlon training, where there's very little information out there. But I base almost all of it on long distance running. Because for me, it's one of the most similar. The only other similarities I see is in like 10K road programs, where you kind of pinch that and you go, actually that kind of relates. So I think you're right in that sense that maybe kettlebells is harder from someone who has done long distance training for long distance runs. But I draw a lot of similarities in the fact that one, your programming can be very similar. Two, it's kind of just, in reality, it's just kind of you, even when you're in the race with 100 people or 1,000 people. It's just you competing against the distance you're trying to hit and the time you're trying to hit. Whereas in kettlebells, the better lifters that talk about it always say the same thing. You're not really competing with who's on your left and who's on your right. You're just focusing on the bell, the actual lift, and it's a different set. Like a 10 minutes of a 28 is a different demand. 1 hour with a 20 or an 18 is a different demand, but you're more focused on the actual lift than anything else. And the only other sport I've found a relevance to that has been like running, which is why I draw so many similarities to it. So talk us through one little bit that I want to get into is you've done a marathon, half marathon, pentathlon, and now we're building for World Games. So you've done quite a few different events for England. What's your favourite and what's your worst and what's the hardest to train for?
I think when I started, I always wanted to go down marathon, half marathon, marathon route. And then a space came up for pentathlon. With a week to go, and you said, why don't you do that? And from doing an hour solid, then doing 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, with a 5 minute break in between, I'm like, actually, I prefer this.
Well, there's a backstory to that, because you did I was on holiday and you needed to film a set. And Al came to help you film a set, and this is where video entries can really go wrong. So you filmed a set and you were just doing this nervous jump.
No, I filmed a set with you first, didn't I?
Yes,
and I got no reps.
And then you filmed it again when I was away with Al. And you qualified for it, but that had thrown your confidence. So even though you qualified, you didn't want to go and do it internationally. So then you went and did qualified for Penn. And then went and did Penn in the actual event, and that was the 2022, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And I think Penn probably wasn't your natural event. Then also you qualified in the September with a week's training. You then had a very short turnover before you had like 2 months to do a training cycle for it before you could actually go and do it. Had you had a 6 month or an 8 month window, then the results may have been different. But so you're saying that Pence your least favourite?
Yeah, it probably is now. Okay. Yeah.
And then what's your most favourite still? Marathon?
Yeah, I think it is, doing the hour.
Yeah. I think there's something about doing an hour, particularly when it's actually, and this might upset a few people.
Just sort of cringing now, what's he going to say?
When you pick a weight that's a challenge for the hour, it really is a test of not just your strength, not just your endurance, but that mental toughness, because it's almost a sport of how willing are you going to be to survive being uncomfortable. Yeah. Because if you're not injured and if your hands don't tear, it's not essentially a pain threshold. It's more a fact that you're having to work hard when you know that you're 5% there. Yeah. And you're only 5% there. And the marathon, or the super marathon, which we'll talk about in a minute, is the best example of that. Because by 5 minutes in, you could be thinking, this is going pretty well, or you could be thinking, Jesus, I've got 55 minutes left of this. And I think it was Max, we interviewed on he was training with us as a one-off, and we were doing like a 15-minute set, and to you guys, 15 minutes is like, it's like scratching an itch. Yeah. To him, he was like, he got 5 minutes in, he was like, I've got to do 10 more minutes of this. That's not physically possible. Yeah. So I think that like marathon can sometimes get overlooked by it, because you've got so many possibilities where you can drop the bell, put the bell down, or something like that. And then World Games, what's your challenge there?
Just not breaking my arm, I think. I never thought that I'd be able to lift it. When I've tried previously, we do the gauntlet, is it called? And we go up. I don't think I even managed to lift the 26, never mind the 28. Yeah. When I've done that previously, I got to the 24, I think.
It's been one of these things of this gym because Sarah did it, Deb's done it, Amy's looking towards it, you're working towards it. And it's one of those things that I think that's why I like those gauntlets, because those gauntlets you have like an aha moment when you pick a weight up that 6 months ago seemed like you just didn't think you'd be able to even pick it up. Yeah. Or you pick it up and you just think there's no way, how do people physically lift this? Yeah. And then you get your first rep. And then your first rep, you're not even thinking about 10 minutes. But then you picked it up once, you pressed it, and then you're like, oh, I can get 3 reps. Oh, I can get 5 reps. And then you were kind of, because we were trying to get you to push the weight for the hour a little bit. Your programming put you into, once you've got a program, put you into
3 years.
Yeah. Your programming got you on to 20, 22, 24, and then from there, once you're doing 2 minutes with the 24 and 26, the leap to a 28 doesn't feel impossible. And then when you're kind of like, it's only 10 minutes. That was one thing for me. Was like it's only 10 minutes. Having done an hour with a 32, the concept, and having done 2 hour sets, you done 2 hour sets. The concept of time and weight in this sport really changes. So when you pick a heavy bell up, it's heavy, but you're like, it's only a short space of time. Yeah. And particularly with it not being GS, the ability to hand change makes a huge difference on it. Yeah. It makes that weight so much more manageable. But the other thing you did was you kicked my ass back in January on the 2 hour super marathon. Talk me through how you felt doing it, how you felt afterwards, because this is an interesting thing because it's coming back up again, and we've talked about the idea of maybe doing it again, whether you want to let somebody else do it. So what was that like for you?
I'd like to say I enjoyed it, but about an hour and a half in, I was struggling. I don't normally drink water whilst I'm lifting. Doing the half an hour, I've never bothered before. But I think with that, I got to a point and I had some water and then I was okay.
Yeah. I don't like drinking water. If I can avoid it, I don't like drinking it. It disrupts, it's a sport of rhythm and pace. It's a bit like when you're doing a good run and then you have to stop because the level crossing goes down. Or a car doesn't, it just breaks. If I can get away with not drinking, I don't. But how are your hands with it? And
they weren't too bad actually because I only did the 16. Yeah. And as I say, I do get competitive. So you were ahead of me for half of it, at least, I think.
I had a really good first hour.
Yeah.
and I thought I was going to break 1400s.
Yeah.
And I hit well over 700 in the first hour, and then I've never quite felt the ground go from underneath me. And you can see it in the footage. Like, I've hit walls before, but the difference in the first hour to like 5 minutes into the second hour, I was dying from like 70 minutes in.
So that then gave me a boost of like, right, I'm coming for you now. I'm going to beat you on reps. And
it's
your
like
weight
seeing
was a lot
that
heavier.
distance in the run. It's like you're racing, and you're seeing that person, and they get closer and closer and closer and closer.
Yeah, well, we've done that when we've been running, haven't we? And I'm like, right, we're going to get past her, which you do a lot.
Would you do the 2 hour one again?
Yeah, I think I would have said never, ever after the last one. So it's like having a baby, you forget what you've been through.
Sometimes when you achieve something like that, it's very easy to forget if you could record how bad you felt the next day when you're in that kind of exercise hangover and everything's hurting, compared to that feeling that you've broken a world record or you've set a record. You probably would say you're never doing it again, but you tend to forget the aches and the pains go, the record stays, so you tend to forget the aches and the pains. I think if I do it a third year in a row, because I do actually like the 2 hour lift. I like the mindset of like where you want to be at 15 minutes, 30, 45, 1 hour, 115. I kind of like it, and I kind of like, again, doing something that quite a few people fail to do and being able to do it. So I think I would do it, but if I was going to do it again, I would train for it. I don't think, like, we just basically decided to do it. And we completely mugged for training off from it. Whereas first time round with me and Dale, we were talking about it a lot, and I did some good sort of, I started at 45 minutes.
I was going to say, I think you did some longer training sessions.
Yeah, I went to an hour 15, went to 90, and didn't go further than 90 until the day. But I think just 5 or 6 longer sessions with it would help.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to next year?
See, I get FOMO. I want to go to every single competition going. Unfortunately, my budget doesn't allow it. So I want to go Belgium in November.
Yeah.
And then Spain.
I think you've now got 2 very, very different kettlebell systems going in the terms of what events you can do. And I think with the WKSF bringing in military snatch as well from next year, you've really got like all bases covered through 2 affiliations. So the WKSF and the IKMF now, there's no need to see them as rival enterprises, because there's just simply, if you want to do a half marathon, essentially you're going to go to the IKMF. If you want to do a marathon, you can only go to the IKMF. Yeah. If you want to do a pentathlon or World Games, you can only go to an IKMF. Everything else WKSF caters for so much closer to home than other affiliations. You're not having to go to really kind of far out Eastern European places that are less accessible, more expensive to get to. You can go to great venues and get a great competition. Like Poland was a great experience.
One of the best ones.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But Belgium has got a lot of history for the IKMF. There's been some great competitions there. And for that, I'm guessing you're going just for marathon, yeah? Yeah, I think that will be good. You're going to have some great competition. You're going to have quite a few people that are at your level that you're going to be trying to sort of reach and overtake. Quite a few people that are underneath you in terms of talent that are going to be stretching to try and put pressure on you. So it's going to be a good place for it. Breakdown for people who are like getting into the sport. Break down what your weekly training kind of consists of, and then tell me about cutting weight, getting closer to it, and what weight groups you want to go into.
Okay. So weekly, I run 5 times a week, Monday to Friday. Have the weekend off.
Do you ache by Friday? Your legs really bad?
I'm slower. I don't feel like I ache, although my knees ache all the time at the moment. But but I do think I'm slower by Friday. On a Friday, so I tend to do my furthest distance on a Monday. At the moment, that's probably max of 7 miles. When I was training for the marathon, it was a lot more. And then Tuesday to Friday, I do between 4 and 6 miles. depending on what time I can drag myself out of bed.
Would you do a marathon again? Like a running marathon again?
Again, both Al and myself said never again.
Yeah.
We were looking to go next year. We both entered London.
Oh yeah, you didn't
but
get
we
it.
didn't get in. Surprise, surprise. But the Manchester one that we did this time is only a week before the IKMF comp, and I don't think it gives you enough.
Week before going to Spain.
28. Recovery from a marathon, I don't think is enough.
And the other thing as well is the Manchester Marathon's got a good one, but there's so many marathons you can go and enter.
Yeah.
Whereas you're only going to get one chance in a year to put your England uniform on and go and represent your country and compete. You had to make weight for Poland, and that's the first time you had to make weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I chose the year before. I went in the over 65 category. The weight categories are slightly different, so it's anybody over 65. I didn't have a pleasant experience. I was pulled up on my technique.
That was in Poland, wasn't it? No, in Hungary. But WKSF you want about? Yeah.
So this time I thought I'd try and cut and get under 65 kilo. Bearing in mind I've been with you for, like, say, 3 years in September.
Yeah.
65 kilo was always my goal weight.
Yeah.
And we'd got 65.2, I think, last Christmas, but then stayed around 66, 67, but never actually got to that 65. But made the decision that not only was I going to go back to that competition and have another go, but I was going to try and cut weight to do it as well.
So I'll cut weight all the time.
Yeah.
I can't. Sometimes I find it harder. I like to be like 90, 91 kg before I cut. I've been up to 94 and cut below 85 in sort of like 4 or 5 weeks. But I find I'm happier competing lighter than I am competing big. I just feel better at that weight. How, for someone who's done it once, how hard honestly was it? What did you actually do food wise? And what are the pros and cons of it?
So my diet normally, or since being with you, I've cut out a lot of carbs, so I don't have any bread, pasta, potatoes, rice. I do, however, have cereal every morning, and that's my favourite meal. And you told me I had to cut my cereal out of my diet, so that was really hard. So instead of cereal, I had 2 eggs every morning, and then I just had 1 meal. I have a lot of cereal bars as well, which initially the first week, because we were doing it in 3 weeks.
We did a 3-week cut.
So the first week I cut those out, but I lost too much, and you were worried then that
you're gonna bounce back up.
So I went back to having another cereal bar every day. Ben said I was horrendous to live with. However, I disagree with that, and I don't think he would have noticed if I hadn't have told him. But I'm sure he did disagree with that.
Did you find an advantage being lighter? Because you had a great lift. You had really one of your best lifts you ever done. Or did you feel no difference once you made weight?
I don't think I felt any different,
no.
To be honest.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't think I did.
And with like you basically, on the diet we've had for the 3 years, you've basically been, you might not be completely carb free, but compared to what your diet used to be, you must be sort of like 90% of the carbs you used to live on out. You're doing an endurance sport and you're lifting heavy weights. Do you notice, do you feel like you miss eating carbs, or how does, like, I get a lot of heat when I talk to people about having like quote keto diets, and when I get people on keto diets, do you think there's been any like adverse effects from it, or anything that's been a problem for you?
I can't say that. I can't compare it because I've never lost weight and done exercise like this with still having carbs. So I wouldn't know if there would be any performance or any difference with me having carbs. But it's not, I don't feel like it's affected anything that I do.
Out of every client I've worked with that's really had great results, at the root of it, on some level, has been either some form of intermittent fasting or some form of high fat, zero carb, normally like a little mixture of the two. Yet it's still one of the biggest things people tell me I'm doing wrong with my clients. Okay, so some people who will be watching this will be quite firmly joined onto the England Kettlebell Association and onto the England team. Some people who will come into this or go back and watch it later will have no idea what it's like to get into a sport and then realise you're qualified to represent your country and then get your England kit, compete for your country, win a medal and then win a gold. So what I want to ask you, like in your honest opinion, what was that process like? And then what's it like when you're at a competition and you're actually with the England team and with the other lifters and the actual, like, not just for competition, but the vibe to it and the actual atmosphere that comes?
So for me, when I first got into it, I never wanted to compete, as everybody always says, not bothered about competing. Once you've done that first competition, and then realisation hits, well, hang on a minute, you can actually go and do this, you're qualified to do it for England. As I say, when I'm just stood in here, just lifting the bell anyway, that's like amazing to me, never mind doing that on top. And it's the social side of things as well, here specifically. I think we've got a really good group, we're really close, but that then extends to the whole England team. Every time we go to a comp and then we're meeting up with people, it's just the support. So when we went to Poland, we had a day where there was nobody from Wolfpack lifting, but there was people from England and other countries as well. And myself, Debbie and Susie sat there all day just watching everybody else lift.
If you, go on.
Somebody that doesn't understand the sport, they're like, how can you go and sit and like enjoy watching that? But that was one of the best days that we had.
I mean, everybody always talks about this, about the sport and about and people in the England committee and people that are invested in pushing this sport further, we always end up talking like, how do you get people interested in it? If you're like, I knew a lad, I share a room with a lad in the Marines who was a real keen cyclist, and he would pretty much bunk everything to watch Tour de France. And in my eyes, you're just watching a weekend of people go up a hill. But he was like, the details to it, the personalities, the teams, and all of that. He was really invested with it to the point where he could watch it for 2 days straight. We'll go to a competition and you can watch, the way WKSF feature it. You're like, right, we watch all the biathlon, right, we watch all the jerk, you watch all the snatch for the next day, you watch all the long cycling and half marathons. There was some really good, like David Groenendaal was a great one to watch and stuff. But there was some really good ones. But you're right. You could quite easily get lost for a whole weekend, like just watching good lifting. I always feel like there's certain teams that you always have an interest with, and in the WKSF, the team that always end up socializing with us the most is always that Australian team. And maybe it's to do with alcohol, maybe it's to do with whatever, but it's always that, like, we ended up spending time with them on the last night. We all got together for drinks. They're always that welcoming group of people, and it might be the personalities who's in charge there, it might be the personalities of the lifters, but certainly WKSF, they're always like a central part of the comp, and it is like, it does hold you together, whereas in the IKMF it's more individuals that you look forward to going and meeting. Like, it's all the people that, like, some from the Irish team, some from the French team, some from the Danish team, some from the Polish team. What would you say is like the best part of going to an international comp?
Should say the lifting, really, shouldn't I? Rather than drinking. Like I say, I think it's just everything. I've said to my partner, he's come to a couple of competitions, and he said, oh, should we go and do this? And I'm like, no, I am going because I want to go and be part of that. I want to lift, and I want to support and watch everybody else. So it's just the whole thing for me. The whole. If you haven't been to one, it's quite hard to describe the event, because your nerves go, like, no matter how experienced you are. If you're making weight, you got the nerves of making weight. That's the first big part of a competition. And you can probably, in the documentary with myself with the cuts, we go into quite good detail about it. And you can, looking at some of the footage, you can see my face before I get on the scales, and you can see that I've not screwed this up. That moment, and I've seen people, like, they train all year, and they get on the scales and they've blown their way in, and it's kind of like, well, that's all your hard work out the window
before you've even got to a platform.
I think you were more nervous about my weight.
Yeah.
I told you I'm late.
But then, like, that's your first hurdle. Then you settle into your accommodation, you have a bit of downtime. You have the opening ceremony, which is, again, like, everyone's tired. Some people haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days and then eaten and try and stay awake, and you're absolutely like a wreck. Then you get some rest. Then you've got the first lifts for next day. The energy in the room kind of builds. It builds and builds and builds right to everyone's finished, and it turns into like the party mode.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have this massive like, that was over pretty quick feeling.
Yeah.
Like when you're getting ready to leave, and you're kind of like, I kind of wish I'd made more of that, because I spent all year training for it, and the whole weekend's gone in a blink.
Yeah.
But the only other thing I want to ask you about, and I know people will be asking me about this, is your actual weight loss journey, if you don't mind talking about it. Because like, you put some of your before pictures and your after pictures on Facebook, you get a lot of comments saying how you've been quite a good inspiration for other people who have, like you've said, some people that I've worked with, when they do have weight to lose, they feel like they can never get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Some people feel like they've done it before, and for whatever reason gone right back to their old habits. What's helped you keep the weight you've lost off? How did it feel at the start, and how's it different now?
Okay, so when I first came to you, as I say, my mum had said, "Oh, join Rookery with me." And I thought, if I end up going there, well, I'll perhaps have a quick swim and then end up in the cafe. And I came here, and I think as well, the fact that I knew you from school, and I'm like, well, hang on a minute, I've looked around, if I then turn up and then say, oh, I'm not coming. And to me, I built up in my head, again, you thinking, oh, she's not going to do anything. So to me, my motivation for doing it was to prove you wrong. Even though you weren't thinking that, in my head, that is what so I'm like, right, I'm going to show him, I'm going to come up every week, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm going to lose the weight, and this time I want to keep it off. I don't want to be going back into, because starting, you've got to be in the right mindset to start to begin with. You've got to really want to do it, and then it's something that's going to keep you motivated. And initially for me, it was the accountability, getting on those scales every week. And you'd say to me, well, even if you've had a bad week, get on them anyway. It's not going to be as bad as you thought it was going to be. Now, if I'd been doing it on my own, I'd get on and think, well, that's it. I might as well just pack it all in. And then I'd go back, and that cycle starts again. So I think for me, that's definitely helped. And then getting into kettlebells, obviously the set weight groups, so that's another motivator for me to keep it off and stay in that weight category. So coming up for 3 years, which I think is the longest I've ever
that's a pretty cool thing.
So when I came here, I think I was just under 17.5 stone. I was 111.5 kilos, and I got down to 63.4 with a weight cut. But I tend to be around 66.
Which is a great, like, it's a great, slow, steady, progressive journey. And there's always one thing you mentioned that I always find interesting. There's always a discourse in, like, you don't think it, but you don't think everybody feels this way, but everybody feels like people they don't know have a perception of who they'll be. And when you say, I'm a parent at that school pickup who owns a business and who has, people on the surface, you see he wears ex-military clothing, he obviously owns a business, he's on Facebook with the medals and the success he's had. Obviously he's going to be stuck up his own arse. Obviously he's going to think he's better than people if they're not ripped. But in reality, nobody's really like that. At least I hope nobody's really like that. But you do, like, but I don't see that perception of me. Whereas talking to Al about, like, and other people that have their weights massively fluctuated and yo-yoed, I don't know what it's like to walk around thinking people are judging me because of my size.
No, I always say to Ben about, like, if we wanted to take out and I'd go in the chip shop when I was bigger, to me, everybody was looking at me saying, well, you don't need any more chips.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like you say, if you've never been in that position and been that size, you don't know what you're thinking and what you're thinking that other people are thinking about you.
So then you always kind of think, and again, when you're not the way you want to look and you see someone who you assume is the way they want to look, you're completely distorted on how that person's going to judge you. So if people saw you now, if someone joined the school now and they were a parent and they were overweight and you walk in with your kid and you're in your sports kit, they might take one look at you and go, she's got no idea what it's like to be me. But they've not seen that start and that journey. They might be too shy to ever have a conversation with you about it. Whereas in reality, that's exactly what should happen because they kind of, that can be all it takes to get someone to make that change. That they then kind of go into like, oh, actually, it's not that intimidating going into a gym. If the gym's got the right setting, which is something that I've always tried to get at the Wolfpack to be, is this place where it's not about what people look like as they come in. It's not about a load of mirrors. It's not about people wearing designer clothes. And I wouldn't discourage people who want that. There's just other places, like you said, Rookie, there's other places you can go for that type of product. I've never been interested in that. But it's always interesting to see how like you think someone's going to judge you, but at the same time, you're so natural to judge other people as well by your first impressions of how you see them. It's always struck me as something that there's no real way of stopping that apart from people doing podcasts like this and people listening and somebody hearing it and going, God, well, I relate to being 17 and a half stone. Like, maybe I should, because so many people would talk to me about it, and so many people from the school, from the social club, from social events, from basketball teams, so many people would talk to me and go, I should come. And you know from their body language, you know they're never going to, they're either saying it for my benefit or they're saying it for their benefit 5 beers in, but you just know they're never going to turn up. So it's pretty weird to think how that one conversation apart sparked you into being a 2-time world champion. It's a pretty cool thing.
And it's not just, well, it is that, because obviously that is just mind-boggling, really. But it's just the day-to-day things. I messaged you after we'd come back from Poland about just going out on a hot day and thinking, oh God, what am I going to wear that I'm not sweating like a mess? And it's just that, just be able to go in the wardrobe and throw something on and not have to think about it like that. And saying about the carbs and things, whether, like my life previously, I don't just eat the wrong things, I'm greedy, I eat tons and never full. So I used to sit and have a family-sized pizza to myself and then like just stay on the sofa and just put my plate on the floor and not move for the rest of the night because it'd be that
bogged down with it. I mean, carbs do something like there's, if you ever want an example of like a warning in your body to say this isn't what I'm happy with, if you ate quite a sizable meal that contains like fruit, vegetables, meat, you're gonna feel full, but you're probably not gonna need a nap, right? If you ate a triple decker sandwich, or if you ate a massive bowl of chips or pizzas, how many times, or you have like a full Sunday roast of roast potatoes, how many times do people go, I need to have a nap? Because it just sucks all the energy out of you. I mean, I'm a bit different because I go so long without eating. When I do eat, I don't feel like I can train for like 2 or 3 or 4 hours. So that's another reason why I like to get my workouts done early. But you could eat your diet and then go for a walk or go back to work without that like crash. And if that's not a telltale sign that that food's not good for you, I don't really get what is. But people still, and I know I'll get this because people were here on the podcast, people will still say, if your only way to lose weight is a calorie deficit. By the maths, it's probably true, but the losing weight and having energy to do stuff is a completely different kettle of fish.
We've had that conversation though, haven't we? Because I'm like, well, I'm not counting calories, so... And to me, I don't think that would work for me. I can't be bothered to work out and all of that. And you're like, well, look what you've done. It's working for you. You don't have to follow a set plan that somebody else has done because it works for them.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had great results with people on a calorie deficit, but because I've had people who they just won't take that plunge into cutting out a whole macronutrient, and they'll say that like all the data says this and all the data says that. So I've had people that I've worked with that adamantly won't do it. The difference is, for me 10 years ago, would be kind of arrogant enough to say it's my way or the highway in terms of me coaching you. You either do my diet or I don't take you on. Whereas now it's okay, so you're not willing to do this, would try this. Bottom line is, are you losing, if you're on a weight loss goal and you do need to lose weight, are you losing about 0.5 kilogram a week? If on average, because the first weeks you might be way up and then it starts to peter off. But on average, every single person who's had a great long-term result, that's pretty much what they've added, what it's amounted to. 90% of them have done it without carbs with me. 10% haven't. But I think it works best. And the thing is, like, having it work so well on you, are you willing to risk another diet? No.
And the thing is, I don't feel like we've been away and we go out for a meal, I'll have a steak with salad. I don't feel like I'm deprived.
No, you don't.
With it. In fact, that steak meal we had was the best one I've ever had. So
Whereas by contrast, you're like, oh, if I have this Mars bar, then tonight all I can have is this. That's more restrictive in my view by a long shot. Like if you want to go and have a meal that actually fills you, you can't really go too far wrong with a steak and a salad. You can't really go too far wrong with fish and a salad.
And it means I can have a glass of wine as well. For the wine over the cup.
we could go down a rabbit hole of sherry beer, which was the first one we had after that.
I nearly brought some cherry beers with me.
We'll have to have you back after Belgium, and then we'll have to talk about like how well that went for you, or after Spain with the 28, because I think that is gonna. I think the future of the sport, I think it's gonna get a lot of attention. It's the heaviest bell, be it a single bell, compared to any other event. So it's the heaviest bell guy and a girl can lift, and it's gonna get the attention from that. You've got very prominent people getting really good reps with it from the England team and from this gym. That is gonna get a lot of attention as well. I know I know some of the Indian guys that I've been talking to on Facebook. I know they've getting some guys up onto the 36, weighing 70 kilograms, and they're doing some really good stuff. And they're not that far away from qualifying with that 40 kilogram. I think if you wanna create a sport that's captivating to the outside eye, to draw them in, people don't always get how hard it is to do an hour with a 20 or a 24 kilogram kettlebell. They don't really get how hard pent is, and they don't really get how hard doing it with two bells in GS. They don't really get that. If they see you lifting a 28 kilogram bell and they know that's heavier than the heaviest kettlebell they can't pick up in the gym they're at, instantly you're like, wow, that's something. I think it's such a good gateway event to kind of say, like, this is worth TV attention. This is worth watching it. This is worth, like, after the Olympics finished, there were so many sports that were so underwhelming to watch. You could easily see that captivating people's attention, which is all the sport needs. So yeah, I think we're good here, but I'd love to get you back in after Spain. Do you have a target reps you want to hit for Spain?
No, not that I'm prepared to say anyway.
Okay.
I will see.
No, okay, all right. No, it's been a pleasure having you on here. It's been great. Thanks for coming on. We'll put a few posts about how you're doing without sharing secrets of training, and we'll give you all the best for Belgium, all the best for Spain next year.
Thank you.